It's a cold, moonless night. The kind of night that feels like it's pressing down on you, wrapping around your skin like a cold, invisible hand. You pull your blanket tighter, the sharp, icy wind whispering through the cracks of your window. The sounds of the world outside are muffled, swallowed by the deep snow that blankets everything in sight. It's the perfect night for a horror story. The kind that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. The kind that lingers long after you've turned off the lights. You've stumbled upon silent screams, a place where the darkest stories come alive. Now, settle in. Let the whispers of the night become your only company as we step into a tale that will chill you to the bone. It started as a simple weekend getaway. A group of friends, 4 of them, decided to rent a remote cabin in the mountains. The snow had already begun to fall heavily by the time they arrived, and the sun was already dipping low, casting long shadows across the landscape. The area was isolated, no neighbors for miles, just the silence of the mountains and the occasional gust of wind. The cabin itself was old, its wooden walls creaking under the weight of years. The fireplace, though, crackled with warmth, and the smell of pine filled the air. It was the perfect setting for a retreat from the hustle and bustle of daily life. The group, eager to escape their busy schedules, quickly settled in. They were all in their late 20s, Tom, Sarah, David, and Jessica, a mix of excitement and curiosity hanging between them. It wasn't long before they noticed the strange atmosphere surrounding the place, a weight, almost like a presence, that seemed to press in on them, especially when they were alone. At first, they chalked it up to the isolation. After all, being alone in such a quiet place, surrounded by endless woods, could play tricks on the mind. But then, it started. At night, strange noises echoed through the cabin. Light taps at the window, a faint scraping sound against the walls, like something, or someone, was moving outside, just beyond their vision. At first, they laughed it off. The wind, perhaps. Animals in the woods. Anything to keep from acknowledging the growing sense of unease that clung to the air like fog. Tom was the first to hear it clearly. One night, he woke up to the sound of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate steps outside his bedroom door. He sat up, his heart racing, listening as the footsteps came, closer, stopping just outside the door. He could hear his breath in his ears, the cold sweat forming on his skin. The steps didn't sound like any human footsteps he knew. They were too slow, too deliberate. He waited, straining to hear. Nothing. It was as if the house had swallowed the sound whole. Then, the silence was broken by a voice. A low, guttural whisper. So faint, he wasn't sure if he had heard it at all. "Leave." Tom's pulse quickened. He slowly reached for the lamp beside his bed and flicked it on. The light seemed to chase away the shadows, but the chill remained. He must have imagined it. It was probably just the wind again. But then, the door handle slowly turned. Tom froze. His eyes locked onto the door, watching, waiting, heart pounding in his chest. The door creaked, slowly, reluctantly, as if it was being pulled open by some unseen force. But nothing entered. No figure stepped inside. The door simply swung open, and then stopped. Tom bolted out of bed, rushing to slam the door shut. He didn't know why he was so terrified, but the dread gnawed at him, a gnawing feeling he couldn't shake. He locked the door, then quickly returned to bed, pulling the covers over his head, as if somehow that could protect him from whatever was out there. He told no one in the morning. How could he? They would laugh at him, think he was just imagining things. So he kept it to himself, letting the unsettling event simmer in the back of his mind. But then it happened again. And this time, Sarah heard it too. She was the next to experience the strange presence. She had been sitting by the fireplace, reading a book when she felt the unmistakable sensation of being watched. She looked up, scanning the room. No one was there. She shook it off, tried to ignore the feeling, but then she noticed something odd. The shadows in the room seemed wrong. They weren't quite in the right place. They shifted unnaturally, stretching and creeping along the walls as if they were alive. Her eyes darted around the room, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing that made sense. But the shadows, they weren't just shadows. She felt a sudden cold breeze whip through the room, though no window was open. The fire flickered as if caught in a sudden draft. The air grew dense, thick with an energy that felt wrong. Sarah stood up, instinctively glancing over her shoulder. There, in the reflection of the window, she saw something, a shadowy figure standing just outside. Tall, thin,